This is Deb Moore of the Veterans History Project conducted through Grand Valley State University. Today I'm speaking with Richard Groggel at his home in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's August 28th, 2015. Well, thanks for talking to me today, Dick.
Yes. Well, we pronounce it Groggel here.
Groggel, good. Good, I'm glad you said that. So it is Richard
William Groggel.
Groggel, great. And tell me when you were born, Dick.
July 22, 1924.
In Kalamazoo?
In Kalamazoo.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the family you were born into. Mom, dad, any siblings?
Well, I was born in a house in Kalamazoo on the corner, just off the corner of Patterson and Pitcher, kitty corner from Sutherland Paper Company. And my dad worked in the down in Parchment. He was a grinder on a machine.
Okay.
And Mom, she worked a little bit. Well, we had a sports family. We had a lot of sports, and she even played the women's basketball back in those days, where the women they played half court. You couldn't go and play in one half and the other side.
That's great.
And she was a good bowler, and we had 5 siblings from Mom and Dad. His name was
Are you talking about your dad?
yeah. My mother's name was Esther,
Okay.
and the dad's name was, isn't that terrible?
Well, we'll get it in a minute.
Yeah.
And so were you the first child born?
No, there's 5 of us. My sister was the oldest, Dorothy, and then there was Kurt, and he and I are the only 2 left living. He's still down in Kalamazoo, and he's 93 years old.
Okay.
And he was but all 4 of the boys were in service. And then Harold, he was the next one, and he was in the Marines, and he was overseas in the Pacific, and he was on a lot of those different islands without any injury. He was a forward observer in the artillery.
Okay.
And he was not injured until he got back to Pearl Harbor, and there was an explosion in Pearl Harbor there, and he got some shrapnel from it. That's all, the only thing.
Okay.
And then the younger brother Don, he was in parachutes, and he made 12 jumps, but he did not leave the country.
Okay.
Kurt left the country, as I did.
Uh-huh.
But he went into the Navy because he was deferred for 6 months because his wife died in childbirth.
Oh.
And that child is still up in Colorado now.
Okay. Okay. So it was your sister and then 4 boys.
Yes.
And where'd you go to school in Kalamazoo?
I went to Lincoln Junior High School.
Mm-hmm.
And all the way from kindergarten through 8th grade. Then I went to Kalamazoo Central,
Uh-huh.
the high school there, and graduated. That was in half years in January in 1942.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me what happened then. Did you enlist? With the war was already going on.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I tried to get in the Marines, but they told me I was colorblind, and I couldn't do it because my brother was in it. But so I was drafted
Uh-huh.
in Camp Grant, Illinois.
Okay.
And I was sent down to Texas, Camp Hewlin, in anti-aircraft. And down there you had to learn how to spot planes quickly, and just like that, to whether it was ours or the enemy's.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was made a second lieutenant. I went to Camp Davis, North Carolina, 90-day wonder as a second lieutenant. And then they came back and trained troops in California with another gentleman there, and we got tired of serving, trying to teach them there that they didn't want to listen, so we tried to get in the airborne. And thankfully we didn't get in the airborne because they drop you behind the lines there. But so before we could get find out about getting in there, to take the physical or the paperwork first, they shipped us out. So we went to Fort Meade, Maryland, and we shipped out, went across the ocean, zigzagging to stay away from the torpedoes. And we landed over in England, in Liverpool.
Let's stop right there, Dick. Okay, that's great. Let's go back and get a little more detail before we go overseas. As soon as you graduated from high school, you tried to enroll and enlist in the Marines.
Not in high school.
As soon as you graduated.
Well, I had one semester at Western first.
Okay. And then you tried to get into the Marines.
Yes.
They didn't accept you, so that you went into the Army?
Anti-aircraft.
Now, was that something you chose, or did they give you a test?
No, that was sent that way. There's no choice.
Okay, they thought you would be good at that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. It was not my choice. It was up that they did decide where to go.
Did you go to basic training first?
Yes.
Where was that?
In Texas, Camp Yulee in Texas.
Okay, how did you? What did you think about basic training?
It was tough. We did a lot of marching there, and when at the end of the program, we had a 5-mile walk. We had to walk it all back, and some of the guys said they couldn't make it, and I said, well, if you don't make it, then you don't get any pass for the weekend.
That motivated them.
Yeah, yes.
Was it hot down in Camp Yulee?
What?
Was it hot down there?
Yeah, it was warm, but the thing that got us is we had prisoners of war, German prisoners. They worked out in the field with their shirts and we couldn't do that. We couldn't take ours off.
So they were being held prisoner at Camp Yulee.
Yes.
But you didn't have anything to do with that.
No.
No. Did you have any interactions with them?
No.
No. Okay. So after basic, then you started getting your training in anti-aircraft?
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, that was it was with different automatic weapons. And but I say you had to judge the aircraft first, good or ours or theirs. And then.
So you had to learn all the planes.
Yeah, and then we got air superiority, and so they put me in the Army. And I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and got 8 weeks training there for the Army.
Okay, and so that was more the same or more in detail?
Yeah, it was details for the groundwork, in the infantry. And then from there, when I was graduated from the school, yes, then we got out into training, and then, like I said, we went overseas to Liverpool.
Okay, so when you say we, you mean your unit, your group?
Well, it was a unit. The time we got out of Fort Meade, yes. We joined some other guys, just the two of us that we went, and we joined the other ones.
So when you were going to school getting this training, that was 8 hours a day, or how much of the day did you spend learning?
A good 8 hours. You're up early at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you go out and get lined up and everything. And then at night they play taps.
And did you have time to play cards or go look around, or were you pretty much at the base?
We're pretty much at the base.
Did you know any guys that washed out, that had trouble adjusting to Army life?
No.
No. And what did you think about the discipline?
Well, we had to maintain discipline in our men under us, but we had to, hold the line, just what they would put us through. So
And you said you made second lieutenant.
Yes.
What did you have to?
Some of the other guys went off to some officer schools, some other ones. So I went elected to go to Fort Davis, North Carolina, and to become a second lieutenant in the infantry.
And what are the duties of a second lieutenant?
Well, that you're in charge. You're supposed to have 48 men under you, and then you work from there.
You assign them, you mean, their duties?
Yeah. But I never did get the 48 men.
You had more or less?
I had less. Well, see, from there, I'm trying to see. Yeah, I didn't have, no, from there we went to, we went to Liverpool first, and then we had to cross the channel. And we went into France. We went into the same location that the D-Day they went in there and attacked it, but we didn't. It was 6 months later, so we didn't have to face that deadly shooting that they got when they tried to get in.
Right, you landed in Normandy, but the army had already pushed the Germans back to the east.
Yeah, and so we were up in France, and we went through. I went down to the Moselle River, and I hadn't had my platoon assigned yet, but they gave me the second platoon because their turnover was very high, and they gave me 10 men out of the first and 10 men out of the third, and I had the second platoon, but I only had 20 instead of 48.
Oh, now was that a disadvantage?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Not enough men.
Right. And when you say there was a lot of turnover, that means casualties?
Yeah, they did. That battle at just below Metz on the Moselle River. That's when they lost a lot of men.
So all this time you were getting a lot of information about the war? Did you know what was going on?
Well, no, we just did our daily fighting. When I got there and got to 20 men, then we started out across France and then up toward Germany. And on that trip up there, I lost 2 men. One was the platoon sergeant who had been there since D-Day, and he got some shrapnel in his head and started bleeding, but it wasn't bad. But he was all nervous, so he left. And then another squad leader got some in the hand, and that. So, but I was trying to get one day when it's going up there, we're supposed to get go back and get some rest overnight, and my men had to help me go down through a tank trap and back out again. You see, when we were up there, going up there, we were in slit trenches, and you get in a slit trench, and it was there. You're supposed to keep your feet dry, change your socks every morning, but we were standing in water, so we didn't. But that's.
And tell me, what is a slit trench?
You dig it down so you can stand in it, or you can sit down. You can squat down in it. But that's when I get all that on my feet and all. It's cold, and that's how I wound up with frozen feet at the time. That's why the men had to help me get back. We were supposed to go back for a rest, but we no sooner got back for the rest, and then I didn't get it. They sent us back out.
So was it winter months at this time, Dick? What month was it? It was cold, you said. In the fall or the winter?
Well, it was more in between, getting cold.
And it had rained, so there was standing water in the trenches.
Yeah.
And so what was the outcome for your feet?
Well, I had to just go with them eventually. I still walk on them, but that's something just that carried with me for a while. But
Kind of like frostbite or?
oh yeah, a little worse than that, but it wore off. It's part of, I felt it's carried over to now in my feet, but my feet are okay now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you remember about the crossing? You'd crossed the Atlantic in a convoy,
Yes.
zigzagging.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
That was in the USS Mariposa, and we did that.
Uh-huh.
So we did. I remember we had our breakfast, lunch and stuff there, and some guys were playing cards, you know, gambling a little bit, and I know one guy got faked out on a bet, and he found out afterwards that when he gave in to the other guy, he could have won it. So he ripped the cards up.
Was that a turbulent trip across the Atlantic?
It wasn't so bad, no, but crossing to the English, after we got to English Channel was rougher.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had with a boat to take us ashore, and the boat, big boat we were on, was up and down, so you had to try to get at the right level and jump across.
Mm-hmm.
And then one guy fell in between the boats, but we got him out,
Oh.
so it didn't hurt. But then we got across the channel.
Uh-huh.
And
And tell me the scene when you got to the harbor that they built in Normandy. What did that look like?
the what?
The harbor that the Allies had built at Normandy to offload all of the troops. Weren't there like 5-mile long roads from out in the harbor from the ships onto the land?
No, we didn't see much of that.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now,
But on the way, let's see. Yeah, when we were fighting on our way up, we would hear the Germans. They had this one bomb that if they had earlier, it would have been a difference, because when you heard that they shot that bomb off in the air, and as soon as they fired it, you didn't know where it was going to land. So everyone ducked until it exploded, and hoped it didn't hit you. But that they didn't develop that. But what we heard was that the German 88, they called it. They come in, and as soon as you hear that, you could hear the noise coming. But so you quick try to find your slit trench and get in it. One guy was a little bit late getting into his, and he got some shrapnel in his rear end. You know? So,
yeah, yeah. So what did that sound like?
It was a rough sounding thing.
Uh-huh.
88 it's enough noise on it that you could know that they fired it.
Uh-huh.
And those were bad. But
Uh-huh. So that was pretty destructive, but you had no, other than jumping in a trench, you didn't have any defense against it.
no, not against that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how long did that go on for, Dick?
Well, until we got up further to let's see. Oh, yeah, when we got up, when I was assigned to 2nd Platoon, and we went up to north, we finally got up to where the captain was. When I got up north, it was dark when I went in to join my outfit, my captain and some other lieutenants, but I never did know them.
Okay.
Because it was dark.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately they sent me and my 16 men, is all I had left, into a pillbox.
Yes.
And you get into that pillbox, you had a runway down like this. And down the lower floor, there was food there was bunks there was chickens there were some grenades there. But we had fragmentation grenades, but they had this explosion ones, and you didn't know what kind of fuse it had on it. So you had to test them, if you throw it, it might be just 1 or 2 seconds, so you had to throw it out and up. But that wouldn't hurt anybody unless you were right next to it. But our fragmentation grenades, when they blew up, they had all kinds of shrapnel going off, and if you get hit by that, why you have a problem. So, but.
So you would just be in a pillbox
Yeah.
overnight?
Yeah, no, that was it, and then we were fighting there for, well, let's see, yeah, that pillbox, the second floor had the sliding doors on it. So we had to protect the entrance, because they have to come down in the valley and get it. So I had the men in a BAR team there on those sliding doors. And I brought them back just to rest a little bit one day. And when they're out resting, the Germans blew the door out. See, that periscope that's on the 3rd floor, we had machine guns outlets on it too. But we went there at night the first time, but then in the morning, with that periscope, we could turn over to the Germans. They were only 35 yards away. I could hear them talking, but they wanted to shoot it out, but I turned it away. But the next night, they got on top of the building and destroyed the periscope. So we didn't have any use for that.
Wow.
So.
Wow, did you know they were up there?
Yeah, we could hear them.
And could you have shot him? Could you have?
Well, we tried that. We tried that by my platoon, squad leader, platoon sergeant. I had to get a new one, and he was German, and he and I went up there and tried to jam a machine gun in and fire at him, but they fired a shot in there, and it hit our outlet, our window there, and he got a little shrapnel in his face, but not enough to bother. So so then we couldn't get out because it'd be too. At nighttime, they would go over and get between us and our troops, and I had no contact with my outfit then, because my phone that I had was shot out with artillery, knocked it out, and so you couldn't talk to anybody else. So
you were cut off.
yeah, so we just fought against them there a few days, and finally we got, so what do we do? So I told the men what we're going to do, because they went at dark, they got between us and our troops. We said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go out the alley. I burned all my maps, and we'll go just before dusk, before they get over there. But before that happened, they started firing on our door, so we couldn't get out there. So what did we do then? So, well, the sergeant, some of the men said, well, we could surrender. And I said, well, I'm not sure that would do any good. I think they'd just shoot us anyway. And so I finally said to the men, well, we could surrender, or fight to the death. But I felt I didn't want these 16 men die just for that. So we surrendered.
Okay. And this was where was this all happening? In France?
Yeah, this is in Germany.
This was in Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, this was in Germany. So you surrendered. Tell me the process. You got a white flag. What did you do?
No, we just so it's we called out there, and they said, come out with your hands up. So
Did any of your guys speak German?
yes, the one sergeant, he did, but he said see, we kept throwing grenades out there. We could hear if somebody's hit, and there was. And we got out there, the guy in charge, he said, "You know who that is in the ground? That's my best buddy." Oh, we said, "Oh, that's gonna be terrible, they can shoot us."
Yeah.
But they didn't. They took us back and put us in a bunker, just where the other soldiers were Germans, and they took us back, and I stood there while they questioned all of our men. And one guy saw my nice watch. It was not government, it was mine, and you weren't supposed to take them. But when we finally went out later, he took it, and yeah, they went down there and talked. When I talked to the guy, the German officers in charge, he was just like they portrayed the officers in the movies, you know, real cocky and all. So he asked me a question, and he asked me if I spoke German. I said, "Nein." I said, "I only had a couple of years in high school, but I can't speak it." So then he asked me a question, and I say, I said, "What did you say?" "Yeah, I know what I said." So anyway, and then, but he started, and then, let's see, we had, then we joined some other POWs, some other officers from our regiment that were captured also. So they took me away from my men, and we went with some other officers that had been captured from our other regiment, and they took us by a bus that we had, you know, it was a car that had the 40 men or 8 horses.
Oh yeah.
And we had that car, the two protectors that we had, Germans, one was 57, the other was 61, and as we went up there, up toward Koblenz, Germany, yeah, it was on Christmas Eve, and they were singing Christmas carols. And then just before we got to Koblenz, there was an air raid. So we had to get out and go to the shelter. And when we got out, and there's a bunch of Germans there that said, "Are you Air Force?" And we said, "No, we're not." Because if we had been Air Force, they would have killed us. And you couldn't blame them for it because we were bombing them. So and after we got out of the Koblenz, then they took us all the way back. I got pictures of these different camps. We all went back across Germany to get registered under the Germans. And they gave us, we had our own dog tag, but they gave me a German dog tag. And then, oh, quickly, come on. Yeah, then they took us by train, and we went all the way across Germany up to Schuben, Poland.
Okay.
And on the way, we had the protectors. They had 2/3 of the car. We had 24 men on 1/3 of the car. So we took turns sleeping. We had some guys sitting on the bench for 8 hours, and then we had some standing up for 8 hours, and someone laying down for 8 hours. And it was terrible. And all you had was a big can to take care of your business.
Yeah, right.
And it was had to go over there too bad. One time it got there too late, so I was all messed up. But anyway, it's got too much.
Yeah.
And then
Did they feed you?
not in that trip, no.
Uh-huh.
No, but we got over. See, they took us all the way up to Koblenz, or Schuben, Poland, and then we went back. No, we went back and got registered. I'm sorry, and then they took us up to all the way across Germany through Berlin to Schuben, Poland, and that's when they gave us some oatmeal, and we were quarantined for 2 weeks because a couple of guys had some illness. But before that 2 weeks was up, why the Germans started coming. So we were taken out all the way across Poland with the German refugees. It was terrible. It was freezing cold, and we had not much to eat. But we did have a little bit of trading. We had a part of a Red Cross parcel we got, and we had in that Red Cross parcel was 6 packs of cigarettes. So I traded them. Haben Sie Brot or cigarettes? Yeah, yeah. So we prayed. They were the Polish women, they had women working in the fields too, but they were very friendly with us. And sometimes we'd go to stop and we get pull out some carrots or something out of the ground. But we got food along that. It tells it on that sheet. I got the whole thing listed out of one Captain Shin. He took a record of how far we went, what we did, what happened, and then you can get a copy of that later until we got oh, let's see, events. Yeah, we got that. We had to sleep together going across Poland. Right. Because it was so cold, but we tried to find the barns and sleep in the barns where the cattle were. But some guys up in the hayloft, and we found out that they were hiding there. But so the Germans called the SS troopers and dogs, and when we would leave a barn, they would fire through the hay stack in case somebody was hiring.
So nobody did that anymore?
So they didn't do it, no.
No.
But we had one guy that it was a guard. He'd been in U.S. and he spoke English, and he said if the Russians ever come, I'm going to stay with you guys, because they hated the Russians and the Russians hated them, and they would rather stay with us and take a chance than get taken by the Russians.
By the Russians. So, so all this time that you are crossing Germany and Poland, you are in the 40 by 8 truck?
No.
Or how are you getting transported that you had to stay?
We were on a train when we went up to Schubin.
Uh-huh.
And then when we went across from there, well, we got, yeah, well, no, when we got up to Schubin, we had that big trip. We went 350 miles in 45 days, and that's in the cold. We had very little food to eat. In
the truck?
No.
In the train?
We were marching.
Marching?
Yeah, we were walking.
You walked for 350 miles?
Yeah.
And that's when you stayed in barns overnight?
Yeah.
And that's when you could trade a pack of cigarettes for food?
Yeah, we did that.
What might you get for a pack of cigarettes? How much food would they give you?
Oh, just not much food.
Not much?
Just, yeah.
Maybe a couple carrots or?
Just some carrots, something that's on the ground.
You couldn't get a chicken or something for a pack?
No. We later on had something that happened with a chicken that later, different camp.
Okay.
But anyway.
Okay.
But we got there.
And so you were captured, or you were captured around Christmas Eve, 1940?
No, that's not when it was Christmas Eve. That Christmas Eve was being taken up. We were already prisoners. Okay. We were taken up to Koblenz.
Okay, so sometime in December of 1943 or 44?
44.
In 1944,
yeah.
You were captured. So all this time it's December and January when you're marching?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's cold.
Yeah. Yeah, we started out there and went 350 miles, and we got different kinds of food. We got some ersatz coffee, and that's a German coffee. And you had to like it, drink it because that's the only thing you had until it tasted okay to you. Because some we get once in a while, we get another prisoner join us. They would take oh, I don't want any of that. I said, you better like it because that's all you're going to get. And we got very little food going across.
What was it like, Dick? What was it? Yeah, just icky coffee?
It was it was made out of, I forget what they called it, made out of, but something that was very, very dry.
It was a drink. It wasn't really
Yeah,
coffee.
But once you got used to it, it was good. And sometimes that's the only thing we got, according to the list on all of this, what we did and how far we went and everything. And we finally got up to, let's see. Yeah, we were up to, let me see. Oh, then we went down. Then we came. Then we thought we were in Hammelburg, Germany. After that trip, came across the Baltic Sea, and then we went there. And taken Hammelburg, there was another prisoner of war camp with different prisoners from different countries, and it's just so happened that one day some American troops came, armored infantry along with tanks, and we thought we were liberated, but we weren't. We were 60 miles behind the lines, and the reason that happened was Patton had a son-in-law, Lieutenant Colonel Waters, who was a POW there, and that's classified information now. They won't say anything about that anymore. But Lieutenant Colonel Waters, when he went to raise the American flag, why, somebody shot him, not killed him, but they just wounded him. So when we got done there, then we somebody went and got a machine gun from the troops that came in, and they found the guy that did that shooting, and they killed him. So then we were taken. Oh, where's it go, Mary? From there. Do you have that list going there? Shoe and Poland. Oh, we went down to. They took us by train down to Nuremberg, Germany. And on the way down there, or just got down, just outside of Nuremberg, there was another POW camp.
Okay.
And we were there only a couple of days when where were we? Yeah.
Well,
Camp. That's when I got the chart. Sure.
that's okay. That's okay. So they took you to this other camp outside of Nuremberg.
Yeah, and that's and we went up there to Nuremberg. That was we were leaving there to go south. That we stood out there. We saw one of the biggest raids of the war at Nuremberg, and it just destroyed everything. But I was sitting there with that, and I was so hungry. I told them, the men there, all the other POWs, I can't go any place without something to eat, a bite. And some guy had a piece of bread that he gave me.
Wow.
And so we did, but Nuremberg was just leveled and just outside. And then from Nuremberg, after that trip, we went south, went down south toward Münchberg, Germany, just north of Munich. And on the way down, we at night we had one place I teamed up with a guy who was in the Rangers, Patton, Patton, Colonel Patton. Yeah,
Okay.
he was in the Air Force. Anyway, but they told us when we stopped there at night anytime, they says, don't you guys take any food or try to steal anything, or we'll shoot you. But then this one guy, we did see a chicken walking along outside, and this Patton, he said, we'll get, okay. He says, I'm gonna go out, and he picked up a dead chicken, and he waved it around so they could see he had a dead chicken. And then when we came back, well, he caught a live chicken, and we slaughtered it, put the blood in the ground and covered it up.
Good for you guys. And how did you cook it?
Yeah.
How did you cook it?
But they had just a little bit of a bonfire.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But when we were down into to Nuremberg, there was a fellow that I went into service with. He's a little guy. He was from Kalamazoo. He was a good golfer, but he was small, and so he was in the Air Force, and he was a tail gunner on the B-24, and he got shot down.
Oh boy.
But all the men but one survived. But then one day, we were Sunday. We had out having a little Bible study, prayer out in the yard, and I see somebody go by on an old beat-up bike, and I said, "Boy, that looked like Val." And I looked a couple of days, and I couldn't find him. So one day I was standing in the latrine. A guy came in, and it was Val right there.
Oh, that was great. That was great.
That's right.
So why were they moving you around so much? Didn't they know where they wanted to take you?
Well, they wanted to keep us from getting there from the Russians, I guess, because the Russians started coming.
Okay, okay. So, so was there really a prisoner of war camp where you were?
Oh yeah, there was one at Nuremberg.
Okay, and tell me
And
what.
there was one up there in Hannover.
Okay, so what did a prisoner of war camp look like? What were the boundaries, and what were the barracks where you stayed?
Well, the first one we were in the big three-story one. There, we had mattresses on a hard board, and it had a lot of ticks in it, so you had to get used to that. But one time I just climbed out of the bed, went over on a bench and lied down, but it still had the same problem. I carried them with me, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was it. And then we got down to Nuremberg and it's at Val, and we were there just a little while, a few weeks, and we were then liberated by Patton and the 14th Army, I think that was right. But Patton came in there too with his big silver-handed revolvers. But then when we see that liberation there, finally, that was when you said, you don't find grown men cry. There was a lot of crying.
Yeah.
So then from there, we were liberated. Then they took us in a big C-47 tank airplane. They took a bunch of us to Lucky Strike camp in France.
Uh-huh.
And there we got fed food according to what your body would take.
Okay, so the doctors looked you over, or
Yeah.
somebody. Uh-huh.
And then finally we got in a boat and went across to England again.
Uh-huh.
To pick up some German war brides.
Oh, okay.
And when they came aboard ship, we asked them, "Well, where are you going?" They said, "Well, we're going to Cleveland." I said, "Cleveland? That's where the Indians are." Oh, they were scared. They didn't know about the Cleveland baseball team.
How much did you weigh when you got checked in there?
Oh, I don't know, down about. I lost about 25 pounds.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So, and I normally is about 150, so.
Okay, and so you were down to maybe 125. So liberated by Patton, do you know what date that was?
December, I think it was.
In 45?
In 45, yeah.
So you were a prisoner of war for almost 12 months?
Yeah.
For 12 months,
Yeah.
okay.
But one time, we had a chance to send a card home to our family out of the POW camp, third camp. But I got home before that card ever got there.
Oh.
So all they thought I was missing in action, that's all.
I bet they were worried, yeah. At the same time, what was the status of your brothers? Were they worried about your other brothers too?
Yeah, well, Harold, well, he got, he was over in those islands, but he got back after the war was over there. And then
But you said Don never left the country.
Don never left.
And
the
what
country.
about Kurt?
Kurt went, he was on a patrol plane, patrol the southern Pacific for submarines.
Okay. So they were really worried about all three of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was crying and rejoicing when Patton and the army came in.
Yes.
Wow. How did the Germans treat you for that year?
Well, the biggest thing is that we didn't get many food because we see they didn't have much food themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But they never really beat us up. But we saw one German take what they call a tomahawk. It was a type of explosion, and he hit the kid over the head. But there's nothing we could do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But for the most part, they treated you okay?
Yeah, there was no physical harm done to us.
Uh-huh.
It was only the harm we had was trying to keep ourselves warm and fed, but we had very little to eat.
Right. You had very little to eat, and did they give you blankets or?
Well, we had blankets, but we had to slip together into the blanket with somebody else. And then later on, I'll forget just how long it was, I finally lost my bed partner. So I had to just wrap up by myself.
Uh-huh.
Try to keep
What do you
warm.
mean you lost him? What happened to him?
He died.
You think from malnutrition?
That's right. Or something, whatever it was.
You just don't know.
It couldn't live anymore.
Yeah.
Not on the little food that we had.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did you do during the day at prisoner of war camp? Did you do anything? Sit around and talk? Play cards?
Well,
You probably didn't have cards.
Some guys were playing some cards, and I was watching them, and what were they doing, playing cards, and they said they were playing bridge,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know, and I says, can I watch you? Yeah, oh, it's okay. And can I ask you questions? Yeah, okay. That was the first time I heard about playing bridge. Yeah.
Uh-huh. 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 Interesting. Okay, so you said then they shipped you to France and then you went to England.
Yeah.
And what do you mean you picked up German war brides? What
There
does
were
that mean?
some ladies over there that married some of the Germans.
Okay, so there were English women who had
Yes.
married Germans.
Yeah,
Okay, and then they were going to go to Cleveland, Ohio?
yeah.
Huh. Okay.
That's the ones that we had. They were yes.
Okay. Okay. And how long did it take you to recover your strength, Dick?
Oh, I don't know. It took quite a while. I don't remember just when you say it, that I finally came full strength. But I was much better after we left the Camp Lucky Strike and got food.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember way back when we were first thought we were liberated by Patton, we got some bars, chocolate bars,
Uh-huh.
and we ate those, and that was just too much for us.
Yeah, you would have got sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what was your crossing back over the Atlantic again like?
Well, the Atlantic, that crossing was okay.
That was okay. And so they took you to New York Harbor, or where'd they take you?
They took us to New York,
Uh-huh. Then what happened?
and they took us back, and I got a 60-day leave, and went back home,
Okay.
and
That was a happy
I
reunion.
coming out of there, I was on when I come back to, I think it was Chicago some first, and then came back on the twilight, or the late night train, and back and down to Kalamazoo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they knew you were coming? Your family?
No.
No, you surprised them.
Yeah.
I bet that was quite a reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your parents had been
Once I got in the country, I called them.
Oh, good.
And so I
Oh,
knew
that
I was coming.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So they knew you were safe.
Yeah.
And so 60-day leave, then you had to go back into the Army?
I was still in the Army, but I went down on 60-day leave down in Miami, Florida.
Uh-huh.
It was in there, and we had some good food in there, and there was so when we go up and down the elevator, there was one guy who tried to get a date with one of the ladies, and the gal on the elevator said, who is it? And she said, you tell me and I'll fuss at her. But then finally came D-Day while it's down there, and everybody was out in the street celebrating. But I stayed in the room and gave thanks for it.
Yeah. It's too much to take in.
Yeah.
Wow, too much to take in. But it was nice to be in Miami when the end of the war came.
Yeah, and then Val, the other guy, he asked for an extension on that. He got an extension for a 3 more weeks, but I couldn't get one. But so I went back up to, let's see, what was that camp? Or what? Oh, anyway, I went back to another camp there in, was serving with another officer there. We went over to the I can't think of the name of that camp right now, but another officer, we went over to pay a visit to some people, some of the men in the hospital, and when I came out of the hospital, I jumped down the last 2 steps and hit my ankle on the side and sprained it badly, so I had to go back in the hospital and stayed there a few days until they released me, and then they got home.
Then you got home.
Yeah.
Then that was it. I see from your papers here that you were totally in the service from March of 1943 till August of 1945. And you at some point were made a first lieutenant?
Yes.
When did that happen?
That was when I finished the training there in basic anti-aircraft. I went out there and became at Camp Davis, North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And that's what they call a 90-day wonder. So in 90 days, I got of studying artillery and stuff. I was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant, and I didn't realize what day it was until later on when the guy was making an announcement about it. It happened to be on November 11, 1945, I think it was. But it was on a day, a special day.
Veterans Day in 1944?
Yeah.
You were out by 45 in Veterans Day. But a first lieutenant is a higher rank than a 2nd lieutenant?
Yes. And
Okay.
Later on, I was made a 1st lieutenant.
Yeah. I think another fellow that I interviewed told me that 2nd lieutenants, that was there was a high mortality rate with 2nd lieutenants.
Yeah, because they usually don't wound up with a platoon or something like that if they're in the infantry. And of course, you're down there in front.
Right. So you were in a risky situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get that upward increase to the 1st lieutenant until after I was all out of it.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
declared it.
So did you use the GI Bill, Dick, when you got out?
Yes.
What'd you do?
I went back to
Western Michigan
It
University.
didn't cost me anything.
Great. What'd you study there?
Well, I originally planned on taking electrical engineering down to Purdue. But when I got out, they said that, well, there's so many
Electrical engineers.
engineers out there, you better change your curriculum. So I changed it to math and accounting. And then I went on in there and got out doing that. So then I went out and
You
got
worked-
home. Yeah, I was home, yeah.
So you worked as an accountant for your career?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I did the different things. It was in electroplating.
Oh, yeah.
And we had the, we had some other guys that were in electroplating too. And I was in the cost accounting. I made the bids on how much it cost and stuff. And I know back then that we did a lot of gold plating for Toyota. And that was when gold was $32 an ounce, not $1,000 like it is now.
Yeah.
And so one of the fellows, when we were doing that, the younger a fellow that knew more about the electroplating, Terry Vollmer, he got tired of having to go over to Detroit and talk to the people over there about, because in electroplating, when you put some coating on this part, you couldn't get it down in the corner. You had to make a turn in there. So we would go over, I'd go over with them and show them how to design their cars so that you could get some coverage down all the way down inside.
Tell me, Dick, did you have any lasting effects of the war? Did you have bad dreams or anything like that?
No, I didn't.
Not too bad?
No.
And your feet problem, you say, resolved?
Yeah, they cleared up. I have trouble with them once in a while now, but that's not due to that. It's
Okay.
just to walking around here.
Okay, so really you came out of it pretty good.
Yeah, I don't have any real physical damage from it. It was just a lack of food and strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
And
probably took a
energy.
couple years to get that all back.
Pardon?
It probably took a couple years to get all your strength back.
Well, no, not that long.
Not that long, okay.
No, because when I got in, I went back to Western Michigan University, and that's when I met Mary there. She was going down there for that was Western Michigan Teachers College at that time.
Right.
And I was playing baseball there. I played baseball there for 4 years, and then she was there to get her teaching certificate.
Okay. And now you and Mary have been married how long?
And we're here
Yeah, how long have you been married?
66 years.
66 years, wow. And how many children did you have?
Mary, we have 4 children. We have 2 boys and 2 girls. We have a girl, Sue was in Lansing yet, and she works for the people. She works for the Michigan State, checking people for kidney transplants.
Okay.
She keeps that, and then
Sue. Kurt.
No, Kurt was the second one, and
Rick.
well, yeah, not Kurt, it's Rick.
Yeah, we're running out of time. So we got Sue, Rick.
He's Richard Jr.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then Kurt.
Oh, that's where I tried to get Kurt. That was my dad's name. We learned way back here. We said Kurt and Esther, my mom and dad.
Perfect. And who's your 4th child?
The 4th one is Sue, or Beth.
Beth. We got Sue, Beth, Rick, and Kurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
There's no Kurt.
No.
Who's your other
It's
son?
Sue, Rick, me, and Don.
David. Time's running out. I gotta get David's name in there. Thanks for talking to me today, Dick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.